And we are live. Daniela, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you on. You're such an inspiring person. So we originally met through a Facebook group, like a Seattle-based, like women like into wellness type of group, and that's when I first met you. And I think it was like the first time we had a meetup when we were both there, and you were like, "I'm writing a book," and I was like, "What?"
Yes, I remember. It seems like yesterday, but that's so true. I think it was actually my first event. And it's that typical, everybody goes around and says something about yourself. And at that initial phase is when I began this whole book writing. And I remember thinking, well, what should I say? And I would always go back and forth. I'm like, do I say it? Do I not say it? Like, and then I'm like, no, I'm doing this thing. So I'm going to go ahead and tell everyone that I'm writing a book.
I love it so much. Like I actually remember that was like a white elephant gift swap last year or something, like before
Last year.
before things got weird this year. So the book is called Pity Partiers, and for folks watching, here we go. That's the cover of the book. And yeah. And so the book is all about failure and pretty much reshaping our relationship with failure. So, first question for you, Daniela.
Mhm.
So it's called Pity Partiers. What is a pity party?
Yes. So, pity party is when I was growing up. That's the concept that my mom actually taught me of how to approach failure is by throwing yourself pity parties. Long story short, I actually went to the salon. It was the day before my pre-K picture day. My mom takes me to the salon, gets me, all dolled up. We get home and I actually hate my haircut. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and cut my own hair. This little, four-year old girl. I go ahead and cut my hair. I obviously get in trouble. And I kept on crying and crying, and because I am such a people pleaser.
Mhm.
And so disappointing my mom was like, um, a major breakdown. And so I remember just crying and just feeling so bad. And I think my mom honestly just got fed up with me of like, this girl is not stopping crying. And so she said, Daniela, you have to stop. Like, I know you messed up, right? You were not supposed to cut your own hair, but you really need to get over this. And you're going to be getting over this by throwing yourself three pretty parties. You throw yourself three pity parties, do whatever you want. And after that third one, you wrap it up and you move on. And I come from, I'm first generation American. So both my parents are Mexican. And for those people that don't know, when it comes to our culture, it is very much of you just honestly like wrap it up and you move on. And so that's very much how I was taught and how I was raised. So she said, three, and that's it, you move on. And from there, I kind of captured that concept. And every time I failed, I thought back to it of, oh, if I do fail, yes, I feel bad. And of course, feelings get hurt and obviously emotions get tied into it. But after that third pity party, you wrap it up and you move on. So,
I love that because it's so common to like, I mean, I still think about failures I had in like high school, whether it's like telling a boy that I liked him. Like, I think about that shit today. So, I love the idea of like not ruminating on failures and just kind of like, do what you got to do and wrap it up. I think that's awesome. And like, so cool that you brought that into like adulthood.
yeah.
Uh, so like digging a little bit deeper into the three pity parties, like are they the same? Are they different? Like why three and like what's the deal with those three?
Yeah. So initially, three is because honestly, my mom told me, and so from there, I was like, "Oh, it has to be three." But when I actually grew up, as I was growing up, and I was really using this whole concept, I thought that's actually really smart that she chose three, right? When it comes to throwing yourself a pity party, because I feel like personally, one is not enough.
Mm.
And so when I actually started to form the whole concept of these pity parties that I'm just throwing myself, I thought, okay, I feel like every single one of these pity parties needs to have a theme. So that way you have an end goal, really in regards to every single pity party. So technically, the way it works is the first pity party that you throw yourself is to truly feel your feelings. Um, in my family, we are, when it comes to emotion and communication, my mom studied psychology. So she's very much of, we were that typical family where it's like, okay, family meeting and everybody, let's talk about our feelings. And so
Love,
that's
love.
how I feel like that's the reason why I am how I am. But my mom would always tell us, if you need to cry, cry it out. Like, don't hide that. If you're angry, let me know. Why are you angry? Try, like, really dig into it and actually feel your feelings. Because if you're going to bottle them up, that actually makes things worse. And so, when it comes to that, of feeling your feelings, just like what my mom, mentioned to me, if you need to cry, well, girl, grab that box of tissues and you cry it out. I personally, like, I'm a crier. And so what I actually do is I will get in my car, because for me, driving is like therapeutic. So I'll get in my car. I'll literally put the saddest songs you can imagine. And so I put those songs and I just drive and I'm like bawling my eyes out. Like, I feel really bad for whoever's driving next to me, because I've definitely gotten those stares where they're like, oh my God, like, is she okay? And so
I love it. Like you're at like a red light and people are like, what the hell? Yeah. Yep. Been there.
exactly. So that's really the first concept of feeling your feelings. And again, there's no judgment, right? You're nobody's watching you. I highly suggest you taking your own time to, again, really feel your feelings. One time I heard this quote and it said, um, if you hide your feelings, then you're hiding your way into actually being able to experience joy, which
Mm.
is very true. So that's really the first pity party, and the whole theme. And then the second theme, in regards to pity parties, is doing something that makes you happy. So after crying, I don't know about you all, but usually when I cry, I mean, I feel like a deflated balloon. I'm like,
Oh yeah.
my eyes are like all puffy, and my nose is all stuffed. And
Oh
so
yeah.
I feel like that's when you need to, like, really, like, take the turn. And so that's when you really need to ensure that you're doing something that makes you happy. Really celebrating that failure that you just experienced. And I know it sounds a little crazy when you say celebrate, because some people might think like, why would I celebrate that I got fired from my job or I didn't get the promotion,
Mm.
right? But and again, I definitely go more into depth in the book, but really being able to see that as new opportunities. And so, and for that reason, again, pity party number two is doing something that makes you happy, and that's literally anything. So if that's, you wanting to dance in your living room and blasting Taylor Swift, which
Mm.
I most definitely do, definitely doing that. Or if people, you're more of like, oh, I want to color, or I want to bake 100 cookies. You do whatever you want, but do something that makes you happy.
Mm.
And then the third one is getting out of the pickle, which in this case is create a game plan, right? You already felt your feelings, so you cried it out, you punched it out, you worked it out, whatever the heck you did. Second one, right? You did made something that made you happy. And then third one is actually finding a game plan to move forward, because I think that's where a lot of people tend to skip that step, where they don't necessarily create a game plan of saying like, hey, I screwed up and things did not go towards my favor. It sucked, yes, but okay, what am I going to do to allow the situation to help me to then move forward?
Okay. So number one, feel your feelings. Number two, do something that makes you happy. And number three, make a game plan for what's next.
Correct.
I love that the third one kind of like leads you into doing exactly what your mom suggested. It's just like pack it up and move on. Like you got to make a game plan to move forward. My dad said something similar when I was growing up, and he was like, just keep moving. Like that was his main thing for me, is like, no matter what, like everything is just information, like good or bad. And then you just like have to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and isn't it funny though how, like, everything that your parents told you and like that, those like little snippets, they like really got in there.
I know, and at the time, I was just like, "I can't just move forward, dad." Like, and then it's just like, I don't know, it always turns out that way, that the things you're like, "You don't even understand." It's just like, they understood the most, actually.
Totally. I know my mom, after I wrote the book and when this whole book even began, I told her, I was like, I'm going to write about what you taught me. And she was like, the time I grounded you when you cut your hair, like what? And to this day, she's like, didn't, I mean, I just told you what to do, but I didn't really understand like how much it would affect your life. And which, I mean, thanks mom.
Yeah, I know, huge. You talk about your family a ton, and you talk about your dad with, like, otra oportunidad, and, like, do you mind touching on that?
Sure, yeah. So, I'm I come from a family that we're literally like obsessed with each other. I feel we always say like we feel bad for like my future husband, my brother's future wife. Like it's gonna be one of those where we're very united. But also in that fact is I think what made it so united is because we've gone through so many ups and downs as a family.
Mm.
Um, Again, both my parents are from Mexico. My dad actually moved to the US, specifically to LA, when he turned 17. And he knew no one. He actually did have one of my uncles that did live here, but he didn't speak English. The man barely graduated high school. He just came to a completely foreign land and he had dreams and he just thought, if I really want to get up there and one day become a business owner, I'm gonna have to work my ass off. And that how am I going to do it? I have no idea, but you just figure it out.
Mhm.
So growing up, I mean, I was born in East LA, and it's funny because I look back now, and every time I go to LA, I purposely go to my old house, and it's crazy to just think of like, wow, definitely not the best neighborhood, but growing up there, I thought my house was beautiful. Like I thought it was because it my dad worked so hard to get us there that I found just such a beauty towards it. And yeah, and then so again, it's just been us consistently really, sticking together as a team no matter what happened, and just being able to see how even my parents, seeing them with their own struggle throughout the years and being able to see like what exactly they do to navigate through the waters is definitely something that has helped me, obviously as growing up and as an adult now.
Yeah, you talk so much about resiliency, and I kinda wanna shift gears a little bit to, like, adult life. So, for folks listening, they're like, "Okay, cool, she cut her hair when she was younger." But you've gone through some shit, lady. Like, do you mind sharing, so you grew up, so you moved to Seattle from Las Vegas, like, can you touch on that whole thing?
Yeah. Yeah. So moved to Seattle from Vegas. I had just was coming to Seattle to join the infamous tech hub. And I moved out here with a tech company that honestly promised me the stars and the moon and everything. And I moved out here, dream company, killer office, even more killer apartment. I was literally on cloud nine. Like everything was perfect, everything was great. Um, Moved my entire life. A month and a half into this job, they then go ahead and have face financial challenges, and they let go of 50% of the staff. Since I was most definitely one of the newest staff members, they went ahead and cut me. So it went from me having everything I've always wanted to literally having nothing. When I moved to Seattle, I didn't know a soul, so I didn't have any friends. I at the time, I mean, I had two roommates that I honestly just met a month prior. So I got let go, and of course, this was prior to uh, the assistance that we're providing now. It was more of a pack your stuff, here you go, and thanks for sorry, like sorry for moving your entire life to Seattle, but thank you. And so I remember losing my job and thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Right.
Yeah.
You're kind of just like stuck there because I moved everything, and I moved my entire life to Seattle thinking this is going to be like the perfect opportunity. And I then realized, shit, I just completely screwed up. And so that of course then began my story of me trying to find a new job, being rejected, not getting jobs that I wanted, and really finding, really trying to find like the light at the end of the tunnel of saying, okay, even if one job rejected me, okay, wipe the tears and continue applying, just continue, just keep on going until I then find the right opportunity.
Yeah, I definitely wanna dig into the your job search a bit more, but after the initial layoff, like, do you mind talking me through, like, how you dealt with that? Did you throw more than 3 pity parties? Because I feel like I would have been on step 1 for, like, 5 times.
Oh, definitely. Yes. And I mean, at the end of the day, I say this in this book. I mean, I can preach about like just throwing yourself three and moving on, but at the end of the day, we're all human. Like yeah. And so I remember, yes, that time I most definitely, it was more than three that I
Mhm.
threw. I kid you not, I went straight home. I went to the grocery store and I went ahead and purchased, I think, all of the Ben and Jerry's like half baked pints.
Mm,
'Cause for me, it's like I need to like inhale ice cream, and so
yes.
so I got all the ice cream I could possibly find. I went home. I shut all my windows, all my blinds, and I kid you not, I binged watched the entire season of This Is Us.
Oh
Uh,
my god. Talk
Again,
about a crying show.
yes, the saddest show ever. And I mean, completely bawled my eyes out. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I mean, obviously by that time my family knew what had happened, and I let them know. I was like, just give me a week. Like, give me a week. I need to just completely let it out. So I watched This Is Us for a good, I want to say like 4 days. And it
Oh,
was just, I didn't even shower. I literally would just get up, go get ice cream or order some like Uber Eats or something and just watch away.
yeah.
And then at that point, I remember my parents calling me, obviously just to check in on me. And my mom said, she was like, hey, Daniela, like, just a reminder again, three pity parties. Don't, like, don't let yourself just, I know it sucks. And yes, like, we all feel for you, but you got to move on, girlfriend. And so I remember, right when she said that, I was like, I do. And I need to then now get my frustration out. And so I actually went to the gym, and the Stairmaster is like my Satan, but also my angel. And so I just went on that Stairmaster. I like put headphones in and just blasted music and just went for it. And so that was kind of like my second pity party of, for me, that it really brings me happiness as well. And so did that for a little bit. And then from there, I drove. For me, I love, again, I find driving therapeutic. So kind of drove, kind of like put my thoughts together and realized, okay, yes, it sucked. I lost, my job and what I thought I was going to come here to Seattle for, but also, be grateful that you're in Seattle, right? You're surrounded by tech companies. And so that's when I realized, okay, no, now we need to ensure that we figure out a game plan. So I'm going to update my resume again, put myself back out there, and start applying for every single job that I can possibly find.
Yeah, I and you talk about, like, going to a bunch of networking, like, things, meetups, and people being like, "How are you so happy?" Because 'Cause you're like, "I lost my job."
Yeah, yeah. So obviously when you're applying for a job, yes, you can most definitely do it for most of the day, but you will definitely burn out. Just going ahead and copy pasting, right? So since I was new to Seattle, I thought, okay, I need to meet people because I feel like that's also a great way to find a job. So I signed up for every meetup you can imagine. Like I remember I went one for museums, which I like museums, but I don't know anything about them honestly. And so I went to every single meetup, and yes, it kind of got this whole concept of or the common question kept on coming up of like, so what does everybody do for work? And people would say like, oh, I do XYZ. And I would tell people, I was like, oh, actually I moved to Seattle, but I got let go, and go through the whole thing. And what I found funny is that every single time I would say that, I actually had a smile on my face, and people found that so weird. I remember them thinking, and they were telling me, they're like, "How? Like, wait a minute. So you moved to Las Vegas? They fired you. You're jobless. You don't know anyone, but at the same time, you're very happy. Like, how does this work?" And so I told them, I was like, "Yeah, I mean, it sucks, but at the same time, I was like, I just through my pity parties, and now I'm moving on. Now I'm on my third one. I'm trying to look for a job." And that's when people are like, pity parties, like what the hell, like what is that? And so I explained the concept to them, and for them they're like, oh my gosh, like that's actually so simple, but it's also very genius. Like I wish my parents taught me that. Again, and it was one of like eye openers when you realize like, oh, you weren't taught that, like what do you do? So it was
Totally.
interesting.
Yeah. And kind of like digging in a bit more, like I think to me, one of the coolest things that you talk about in the book is how like you can actually build confidence through failure and kind of reach a point of thriving and rejection, which when I read that, I had to sit on that for a while, like building confidence through failure. Like that didn't really make sense to me. But after you think about it, it totally does. So I love to hear your take on that.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny that you're not the only person that has told me that. When I tell them you really can build a confidence after every rejection, they're like, wait, how? Like that, but that don't you feel shitty afterwards? It's like you do, but then have you ever taken that time to actually sit down and think and write down about, every single rejection that you have received in life, and it then somehow magically gets you to where you are now. And
Mm.
it's, you being able to see, wow, like look at that shitty road I just went through, but I'm still here. Like, I'm still surviving. I'm now at a job that I love, or I'm an opportunity that I love, or this works in every concept too, even with like relationships, right? When a relationship ends, you can think, oh my goodness, like wow, I can't believe, you feel really bad, or you're just like, well, why didn't it work? But from there, you can actually see that even though that relationship ended, there's a lot of things that that person taught you to become stronger, right? And so I kind of just got like, just seeing through all of my failures and all of my rejections, I ended up realizing like, what if we like changed my perspective? Instead of seeing it as a negative, I see it as a positive. The more I'm seeing it as a positive, the more confident I'm becoming with this concept. So that definitely, again, has really helped of when it comes to, again, rejection or failure, of saying, you know what, props to you for actually trying. And if it doesn't work, then okay, it doesn't work. Now you know what not to do on your second try, or what to edit a little bit on your second try. And again, it really is just of like changing that perspective.
Yeah, and you think about like, or I think about like, if you only fail one time, so let's just say you apply for one job and you don't get it, you might be like devastated. However, if you apply to 50 jobs and you don't get like, I don't know, like 40 of them, like on the 40th time you get a rejection letter, you're like, it doesn't even phase you as much. So that's how I was like interpreting like the building confidence through failure is like the more that you fail and get rejected, the more you realize it's not a big deal. And then you're able to like play to win more so than playing to not lose. Does that
Exactly.
make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
I
Because
also go
you,
ahead.
you just become so much more comfortable with it. And definitely, I'll be honest. the first 3, they suck. They do. It's going to be really hard to feel confident about it, because it was hard for me too. It's still hard for me. But I think it's just, again, like changing that perspective of like, I can do it. Okay, that didn't work out. You stand back up, you dust yourself off, and let's go again. So
Yeah, it takes away like some of the pressure. Like when you put yourself out there multiple times, like it takes the pressure off of like the one job.
definitely.
Yeah, I talked about that on a previous episode about living with your partner during COVID. And like if I only ask Ben for advice and he gives me like crappy advice, like I like it's a big deal. But if I ask like multiple people, then like, just it doesn't put so much pressure on him to like not mess up. So like I was thinking about that. I was also thinking about how boys growing up are encouraged to be like, go ask a girl out, whatever. So then you get to like I don't know, when I was in college, it's like insane how comfortable with rejection they are. They like can just hop around a bar being like, do you want to go home? Nope. Okay, next person. Hey, do you want to go? It's just like they've just become so comfortable with it. And of course, like you can always look at that and be like, that's a little like, that's a little skeevy, but like it's cool. It's interesting to see like the comfort level of failure and rejection once you've like gotten a ton under your belt.
Definitely. Yeah, no. And like I said, I think that is the hardest part initially, just to get comfortable with it. And really just teaching yourself of how to even become your own cheerleader. Like I think that's a whole other concept, right? Of, if you don't have me back then, I mean, Seattle, I didn't have like my girlfriends, and I didn't have like my everyone that's like my rock that was right here to be like, come on, come over and cry with me. I
Mm.
had to figure it out by myself. And so um really is like learning how to also be your own cheerleader, because at the end of the day, sometimes you are solo and you're gonna have to be the one that's like petting your own hair, but at the same time it's like, like wipe those tears and get back up and get back out there.
So with being your own cheerleader, is there a certain thing that you do? Is it just like affirmations or like just like, giving yourself a pep talk, journaling? Like how did you like learn to become your number one cheerleader?
Definitely journaling. I am a true believer of gratitude practice. So sometimes I feel like when you're at your darkest moment, it's really hard to see that tiny little light that may be shining through.
Mhm.
And so for me, whenever I am needing to be my own cheerleader, I start with a gratitude practice. What am I grateful for? And I do the most minimal, and some people might find it stupid, things like my warm cup of coffee. I love coffee. That's like my first thing in the morning, and that brings me 100% joy. Like I am not kidding. I whenever I sip that coffee, that is like few seconds, I am a happy person. I'm like dancing in my kitchen. So just like those little tiny things, I write those down. Like I, appreciate my coffee. Even with like my car, I drive this like big obnoxious FJ Cruiser that's like super bright, and but I love it because I feel like it's like my sunshine. I'm like, oh, I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that it's big and yellow. And so so I start off with kind of just with like the gratitude practice, and then I kind of that's when I start like my reframing begins of, okay, I'm feeling sad and I'm feeling angry and all these emotions, but look at everything that you have and everything that you're grateful for. And again, that's something that my grandpa also taught me. Like every time I'd vent and complain to him, he'd be like, Daniela, are you breathing? Yes. Do you have arms? Yes. Are you healthy? Yes. Do you have a roof over your head? Yes. Okay, then there's no complaining. Like he was very much like that as well. And so I taught myself honestly how to also quickly reframe the situation and not get stuck in that like dark hole.
Wow, that's powerful and so needed. Like I think about some of the stuff that I complain about and get stressed about, and it's for sure not worth it in the grand scheme of life.
Yeah. No, and I think that's just I mean, like I said, I also get caught in that too so many times. And it really is just training yourself to to just catch those moments, right? When you're like, wait a minute, I am complaining a lot, or um, these things don't really matter. And so, and it's really important to like take that little pause and take that step back and really seeing full picture of like, holy shit, I'm actually very fortunate. Like, again, if you're breathing and if you have a roof over your head, you're golden. Like, what else do you need?
Yes. Yes. So writing this book, you got to talk to some heavy hitter women, some pretty boss ladies. Do you mind telling me a little bit about that?
Yeah. Yeah. So writing the book, initially thought, okay, I want to include other women. I feel like books, we already have a lot of men that are on the bookshelves and not necessarily women. And so I thought, okay, I want to make sure I'm focusing on that. So I actually definitely had the honor to speak to three in specific. One of them is Sheila Bella. She's actually the founder of well, now she's a founder of multiple businesses, but she is actually a very famous microblader in Los Angeles. Los Angeles. I almost said that in Spanish. And she actually built her empire within a very little time frame. Um, Within 3 years, she actually built her empire of a seven-figure business, which is crazy. She now not only does she have her own salon, she also does coaching. But in the book, she really, taught me, where we talked about how she actually came up with the concept. She's actually from the Philippines, also came to the US with her family with nothing, and is, again, now she is most definitely in a very comfortable state. But she, spoke to me a little bit more about her whole concept of how she was able to reframe all the failures that she experienced. And for her specifically, the idea that I really enjoyed was that she sees everything of when it comes to failure of like burning the boat. If they're, ensuring that if you're wanting to do something, just go ahead and go out there and do it. Sometimes I feel like, people get stuck of like that safety net of, I want to do this, but no, I'm comfortable, right? And then you kind of like second guess yourself. And that's how she was when she wanted to start her own business. And she said, finally, I realized I just have to burn the boat, just burn that safety net. And then once you have no safety net, you actually have to go for it. So she, again, most definitely awesome conversation with her, but that really was her main concept of how she, how she's able to see failure and be able to reframe it to help her to achieve her goals.
Yeah, like the burn the boat so you learn how to fly idea is like so scary and so bold of her. Another point that she made that I really liked is that like it took her 15 years to reach like her level of success. So it's not like she burned the boat and then a week later was like making seven figures. Like 15 years is
Mhm.
a long time, and I think it's so easy, like, for me, when I read books and it was like, it took someone 15 years, I'm like, "Yeah, but whatever." But, like, we have to, like, think about that, like,
Mhm.
15 years ago, I was 11, like like it's a long time of, like, work of, like, hard work.
Definitely. And it's funny, when I initially interviewed her, she let me know, well, my business within 3 years. And I thought, that's a lot. Like, how did you do that? And we obviously started digging. She's like, actually, she's like, I say that for business purposes, but this took me 15 years. I'm like, okay, all right, here we go. And it is true. I mean, it's just like everything else. If we see the final result, but very rarely do you see like behind the curtain and you realize that was a lot. It was consistently getting up every single time you failed, or changing and pivoting ways of how you're going to get there. And that is what what she also discussed with me, is that when she began, she had no idea what she was doing. So it was consistently failure after failure after failure to then when she initially, started to figure it out and realize, okay, I can do this. And going back to our whole concept of getting comfortable with it, right? Of saying like, okay, I failed and they rejected me, but I'm going to try again. And I'm going to just go ahead and continue doing this.
Yeah. Like, what a powerful state to be in when like failure's just neutral. It's just information of like, okay, not that. It's something else. Like,
Yeah.
oh, that is the goal. I'm most certainly not there, but like, love that. Love
Yeah.
that goal.
Definitely.
So, Daniela, you wrote this book while you had a full-time job. Like, do you mind telling me like what was like the thing that like set you off to be like, I'm writing this book?
Hmm. Yeah. So it got to the point where I realized I love my job. It is definitely challenging. Do not get me wrong. But I realized I'm coming home and not, yes, I'm hanging out with friends and it's fun, but I feel like I'm not necessarily being challenged in a way that I should be. And so I began thinking of like, okay, what do I want to do? Do I want to go back to school? What do I want to do? And I actually went to a personal development conference. And during the personal development conference, it was my first one ever, which I highly recommend to anyone and everyone. But they really started talking about the whole concept of, have you ever done something that's really hard? Or have you ever done something that has really scared you? And I remember going back to my hotel room that night and thinking, what? I mean, I feel like I have, but have I? And so
Mm.
then I started thinking, like, okay, if I were to do something that really scares me and that's challenging, what would that be? Made a whole list. Then I realized a lot of my friends actually have consistently told me, you should write a book, you should write a book. And I feel like everyone kind of says, like, oh, yeah, that when I write my book, but we never do. And so then I thought, I'm going to write a book. And I remember thinking, how do you even write a book? Like, where do you even start? And it's the even just thinking that gave me anxiety. Like, it scared me. And I thought, yep, this is it. It scares you. You have no idea what to do. This is exactly what you're looking for. And so I actually went ahead and thought, okay, I'm going to do it. I don't know how the hell I'm going to do it, but I am. I put it out in the universe. And I kid you not, I told my coworker about it. The next day, she's like, "Hey, you should contact this staff member as they're having like a book creator program, and they're actually allowing non-students. So you should see, and maybe you could write a book." And obviously, that's how the whole like concept came to play.
Wow. That's killer. And you maintained your full-time job the whole time when you wrote it. I remember you saying to me that you were even like in Ubers, like writing. Like, can you kind of touch on like the whole thing of like you got a publisher, so like working with a publisher, meeting deadlines while having a full-time job. Like, how
Yeah,
did you do that?
yeah. So writing a book is definitely not easy. And I know people would always tell me that as well. But so the way it works is I did go ahead and get partnered with first an editor, and there are weekly deadlines that you need to meet. Now, when I initially met with them, my publisher, they said, okay, so you're still working, great. Okay, so what are your hours? So, and I let them know, and they said, okay, you need to dedicate 2 hours minimum every single day to this in order for you to meet your deadlines. We've worked with other people that have also worked during this. That's the only way you're gonna make it happen. And my job at the time, I traveled consistently. So I was on planes, I was in Ubers, I was even in the office. And so, yeah, it was a very, very long nights. This took an entire year. So my schedule really was I would work my own job from around 8ish to around 7ish, maybe. Turn off the laptop, go ahead and eat dinner, work out real quick. Around 8:30, I would open up the laptop again, and it was from 8 to midnight. And that was every single day. That even if I traveled, even if I had early mornings or early flights, um, I remember, yes, even Uber rides. If it took me 20 minutes from here, let's just say from here to the airport, you best believe I was on my cell phone and I was writing and I was writing. And it was just consistently, I would ditch happy hours, my poor friends. I would, they always knew me that they would always say, they're like, Daniela, you're only going to come for one drink and then you're leaving. And I was like, I'm so sorry. And they're like, we know you have to go write. And it just became like a joke. But it was, I mean, it was very, very challenging, not only for time purposes but also emotionally. I mean, I didn't realize honestly how emotionally draining writing a book is. Specifically this book, I put so much of my own personal story, and I was just very vulnerable with it.
Yeah.
But you know, you do what you got to do in order for you to meet deadlines, because at the end of the day, if you don't meet that deadline, that book is not getting published. So it was a lot of that, working with editors, also ensuring that you know my voice is being transcribed and also transformed in the book. That was also really hard. Um, I remember my first couple of pieces, my editor came back and said, you know, this isn't going to work. Your style is too casual. So I think you should go back and, you know, reword some things and just change it up a little bit. And I remember thinking, it's too casual. Like, but that's me. Like, I want to make sure that if somebody reads my book, specifically my friends, I want them to say, like, that's Daniela's book. Like, that's exactly what she's like. And it was a little scary, honestly. I've, again, never written a book before. This is my publisher. So obviously, at the end of the day, they're the ones who are putting that stamp on that book. And it was a little scary to actually say, you know, no, I'm not going to change the casualness of my book, because you're telling me then to change my personality, and that's something I'm not going to do.
That is so brave to push back on that, especially you're in an arena that's not your own. This is like your first book. Like you, as you said, like you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then these people are like, you need to change it. And you were like, no. Like you also push back with your dedication. And I find that so cool. So, Daniela, you dedicated this book to yourself. Do you mind sharing about the way that you stood up for yourself there?
Yeah. Yeah. So with every book, they, you know, technically it is dedicated to someone. Usually you dedicate it to your mom, to your you know, to your partner, or you can dedicate it to someone famous. And I remember when we were getting to the point, the book was pretty much done. You then start taking a look at all the, you know, little things, and they said, hey, Gianna, so one thing we need to talk about is who you're going to dedicate it to. I'm assuming you're going to dedicate to your mom because that's who you talk about. And I remember thinking, and I remember asking, can I dedicate to anyone? And they said, yeah, anyone you want, and anyone. You just let us know, and we'll be able to include it on there. I remember it was an email. I emailed them, and I put dedicated to myself, and I put my little message. The editor calls me, and the editor's not even here. They are in New York. So I remember it was like around like 2 a.m. their time. She calls me and she goes, Daniel, I think you made a mistake. When it comes to dedicating your book, it actually needs to go to someone else. Like, people don't really dedicate to themselves because you don't want to be like that girl. Like, you don't want to be that person, you know, that like is a little like egocentric. And I remember thinking like, okay, so what do you suggest? And she's like, I really suggest you dedicating it to your mom, because it's, you know, you write so much about her. Um, and I said, can I call, you know, I'll call you back. I'll let me sit on it for a little bit. And I remember thinking, maybe she's right. Like, that is like so egocentric of me, of dedicating it to myself. And I kid you not, like, I most definitely almost did dedicate to the book to my mom. I actually spoke to my mom, and she said, no. She was like, girl, you worked your ass off for this book. And she's like, you dedicate that book to yourself.
Mm.
And she's like, you know, so many people, if she wants you to dedicate it to me, then she can write a book and she can dedicate it to me. And I remember going back, and I was like, she's right. Like, and it goes into that whole concept of, you know, us as women, we're so used to of trying not to be that girl, right? And so um I remember going back and telling, I sent another email, I included everybody, and I said, nope, I'm dedicating it to myself.
Yes.
I kid you not, there are people that most definitely they're like, well, we'll print it, but just be careful because people might think it's going to be egocentric. And I was like, well, if those people can most definitely think that, and they can write a book, and then they can tell me at the end who they decide to dedicate it to.
Oh, I love that. And I love the advice from your mom. Like she can write a book and dedicate it to me. Like that is awesome. There is such a hang up that people have. I think women get the brunt of it the most, that like we're supposed to be so humble and just like quiet and just generous, or like, just like, oh, it can't be about me, you know?
Mhm.
I've seen so many book reviews, like whenever I'm looking at a book that a woman writes, and I've seen like some negative reviews that are like, it's her just bragging the whole time. And I'm like, you just have like, we just have such a tough time, it seems, in this country with like women feeling really effing good about themselves and being really proud of themselves. There is some hang up there.
That is so true. And you know what? Let me touch a little bit on reviews. That's another
Yes.
thing. When it comes to, well, when it comes to books in general, I remember initially just going back and forth of, do I want to share my story? Do I want to maybe talk about dating? Like, do I want to do something else? And I remember in total, I had 6 editors. So you can already imagine the zoo it was. But one editor in specific, I remember talking to her, and I was like, Carol, like, I don't know, do I want to do this? What are people going to think? What are they going to say about this? And I remember her consistently telling me, she's like, Daniela, I'm going to be honest, in this industry, you are not ice cream. Not everyone is going to love you. And if you can uh, if you can come to terms with that, then you are going to be golden in this industry, because some people are going to enjoy your book, other people are not. And she specifically said, and I hate to say it, but you are a woman, people are going to destroy your book. And because that tends to happen, specifically when you're talking about your own failures, and whenever you're vulnerable, it's like, it just, this industry, specifically when it comes to the internet, right, they can't see you, they just read your words. And so at first I thought there's no way, but I have most definitely have received comments of it of, oh, your failures weren't that big of a deal. And I remember thinking, well, you do realize other people, specifically men, write an entire book or even movies about the failures that are very similar to mine, but at the same time, it's like you cheer them on, but you're then throw rocks at me. Like, what?
That's so lame. And also, like, you're telling me that like uprooting your life and moving to a brand new city and getting laid off 2 months later is not a big deal? Like, ah, lack of compassion there, sir.
It's like we have bigger problems in that situation.
Yeah. So did you have a game plan going into it? Like when you read the negative reviews, like did you have a game plan on how to like take care of yourself, or like or were you like mentally prepared enough to be like, I don't even care? Like how did that sit with you?
Yeah, I did actually, and it is actually my editor really helped me with it. The one that gave me this whole advice. She did let me know. She's like, there is the rule: never read your reviews. Which I'm gonna be honest, I definitely read all of them.
So hard.
It's
Yeah.
hard, yeah. And I also want to know what connects with people, what doesn't connect with people. But she did give me that advice. And I think that even that quote of "you're not ice cream," like not everyone is gonna love you. I consistently think about that whenever I read something negative. It's like, I'm not ice cream, so no, maybe you and I are not gonna connect, and that's completely fine. So it is. It's just whenever I go into or confront myself with those type of situations, I just know that not everyone is going to like me, and that's completely fine. My book may not be the right book for that person, but there's another one. There are others out there. But as long as I'm able to help one, then for me that's it was all worth it.
I love that advice. That's like the mantra. Like I'm not ice cream. Not everyone's going to love me. I love that. So Daniela, what's coming up for you? Like, what are you really excited about right now?
Mhm. Yeah, so book is done. Thank goodness. Um, although it's funny because I was actually just thinking about that the other day. Is like, how long has it been with the book has been out? And it literally feels like years. But it's only been a couple of months. And I actually have been given opportunities to actually speak to companies and speak to groups just about failure and my whole concept of three pity parties, which I have actually greatly enjoyed. I love connecting with people. So I have really enjoyed that. And I think I'm gonna, I'm definitely going down that like speaker route of speaking with women, with just groups, and really teaching them this whole concept of pity partiers and kind of being like their own cheerleader to help them out. So going down that route, I'm also spoke with my editor again. They are asking like, okay, do you want to do book number two? Book number, and I mean, initially I said there's no way. Like I remember halfway into this book, my editor asked me, she goes, Dean, like usually when you write one, you kind of like, it's like tattoos. Like you get one and you're like, I'm not gonna, that's it. Like I'm not gonna do it anymore. And then 15 later, you're like, "Ugh," like, so,
Here we
uh,
go.
here we go. Exactly. And so, she did let me know. Initially, I was like, "Oh heck no! I'm never gonna put myself through this. This is the hardest thing ever." But they did go ahead and ask, like, "What do you want to do a book number two?" Maybe I should. I'm like, wait a minute, I kind of do miss writing. So I'm between right now, like speaking, trying to figure out if I want to do book number two. But definitely, taking my time to really enjoy every new little adventure that I go on.
Oh my God, so many doors are opening.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, that's something that I never even thought about when I began this journey. Like, it's funny because when you meet with your publisher, first of all, it's the whole like you have to sell yourself, right? They have so many people are consistently of write my book, but they have to also agree with the idea. And I remember one of the questions saying, why are you wanting to write this and what's your end goal? A lot of people in my group, oh, I want to be, a very well-known author, or I've studied English and this is my ultimate dream. I remember they came to me and they're like, Daniela, so why do you want to write your book? And and I'm a very honest person. All my friends will know this. But I said, I want it on my bookshelf. I want it on my bookshelf. That's it. And, and they were like, uh, okay, but what else? Like, I'm assuming you really want to become a famous author and you want to do this, you want to do that. And I said, no, I want to prove to myself that I can do something hard and I can do something that's scary and I want to put it on my bookshelf. And so, honestly, that's all I had in mind. I never thought, speaking engagements. I honestly not even thought of being able to meet, with other, or even doing what we're doing right now, the podcast. So it has been really astonishing just to see what doors have opened. But I definitely welcome it. It's been super fun, and it just goes to prove that you never know what's on the other side of that door. That scary door that you consistently stop yourself, and there could be awesome opportunities on the other side.
Yeah, and opportunities that you don't even know. Like, I love that your motivation was just internal. Like, you wanted to do this for you, and then, like, other things, like, fell into place, and yeah, I just think, I love that you, like, just did it to do it, not with any expectation. You weren't, like, beholden to, like, the outcome. You just wanted to do it.
Yeah. And I think that's something that, like, honestly, a lot of people tend to forget. Like, whenever I tend to say this, I'll always ask, like, so what do you want to do? And people that are like, oh, I want to do this. Da, da, da. I'm like, that kind of sounds like you're wanting to meet someone else's requirement. What do you want to do? Like, have you
Mm.
ever asked yourself, like, what do you actually want to do? And it could be anything crazy. Like, for me, I literally just wanted this book on my bookshelf. going back to the whole of, very like egocentric. I know some people might find that, but sometimes like, or even some people, it's like, oh, I want to become a really good baker. Okay, well then freaking do it. Like, just because you never know what opportunities are going to be coming, or what talent you also uncover. Like, I honestly didn't really know I was a writer, but I got published. Like, never would have imagined.
Ah, that is so awesome. Daniela, it's been so amazing chatting with you. Can you share like how people can find you? Like you can you're up for speaking engagements, like groups. Daniela did a book club with the group that we're a part of. How can people reach out to you?
Yeah, yeah. So, just everything what you said. So definitely, part of, able to host book clubs, as well as speaking engagement for companies or small groups. But you can find a lot more information on my website at pitypartiers.com. That's where you can find everything. Sign up for the mailing list. I do have a mailing list. And I'll actually going to be starting my blog on that specific website. So more to come.
Oh, that's exciting. Is what is your blog going to be about?
A little bit more about my life. So everything really, I'm going to be taking the audience through my like real time failures.
Wow. That looking forward to it. And Pity Partiers, where did I put my copy? I can't find my copy. Here we go. Pity Partiers, you can get it on Amazon and at Barnes and Noble. And yeah, check Daniela out, pitypartiers.com.
Yes. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you.